Hey, how you
Hey,
doing?
what's up? How you doing?
I, I'm good, thank you. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's a little chilly here, but I think I'll be indoors for the most part of the day.
Okay. Well,
Trying to
I
venture
can't
out.
tell you how cold London is anyway. I think you'll hear
Right.
every Londoner say we don't have the best weather. But thank you so much for joining me on my show. I know it's quite an odd
Yes.
time to kind of slot in between London and where you are, but I'm
Right.
glad that we've been able to connect. So that's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Just before we begin, I'm just going to give a little bit of a spiel about what my show is about, and then we can dive
Mhm.
in to your single and your musical journey. So,
Right.
my name's Axo. I am a
Mhm.
singer-songwriter here from London.
Right.
I ventured into music last year, so
Mhm.
music was really new to me, and part of that journey was trying to learn what music is about. From
Right.
someone who has a very scientific background to come into this industry was
Yeah.
a steep learning curve. So I created a series called Become the Artist, and I connected with
Right. Yeah.
artists all across the world. And
Yeah.
this year, I'm trying to see what it means to have longevity. And that's a really hard question to answer. But I'm kind of getting the perspective of artists at different places in their journey. So
Mm.
before we dive in, introduce yourself to the audience here in the UK or anyone watching on playback.
Right. So my name is Kyle. Kyle Watson. That's my full name. Originally from Barbados. I've been living in New York for 20 years now. I've been singing for a while. I want to say the earliest time was probably like age 11, singing in choirs, things like that. Um, I've, it's before the show. I was just thinking back on a time when I was in a singing competition in Barbados, right, called Rochester Teen Talent, and it was my first ever trying to do anything competitively. And one of my sisters, we were just talking about this, like at the I made it to the semifinal, and I forgot my lyrics on stage. And and it's a semifinal, so you can imagine it was like hundreds of people, and it was terrifying. But I stuck with it though. It was just a learning curve for me. I've always enjoyed singing. It was one of my many passions. I was that kid that would sing every commercial and every song on the radio to the point where my mother would say, "I hope you learn your schoolwork like how you sing them songs." I was yes, I was that child. I was that child,
Amazing.
and the only I just like you, I kind of started this whole recording musical journey, if you will. I want to say around the same time, probably last year. I started actively writing. I want to say during during the pandemic,
Yeah.
because like when everything first kicked off, because what happened is that you find excuses because you have work and other things going on. So um, I felt like in the first couple months of the pandemic, so it started in March, everything was like really crazy. So it was like you're home all the time, nothing to do. What do you do? You can't go outside. That so it was a little crazy for a while, but then I was like, you know what? Maybe this is a time for me to kind of finish all those projects I started and didn't have time for.
Right.
So I and I've never really written anything before. This first single actually got started before the pandemic and all of that, and that was my first. That was like my first ever project that I started from start to finish. And that started from a conversation me and some coworkers had. Like we were all having our different little areas where we felt we could expand upon. Mine was music, of course, and other people they were either studying or starting their own little business, stuff like that. And we were just talking about it. And I,
Mm.
it's interesting that on my way to work, something just clicked. So I would keep all these little voice notes in my phone, just random nothings. with no real direction. And then it hit me, and I was like, okay, I think I got something.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, and it's like, you know what? Let me jot it down. Let me whatever it is. Let me just put it some words to it because I will forget. By the end of that train ride, I will forget because I get distracted. So I remember coming to work and telling my coworkers at the time, I was like, I think I got something. I think I got something. And I let them hear it, and I was like, okay. And then, I had GarageBand at the time, so I came home and I started like developing it into, just getting my ideas out there as to, what this could possibly be. And I was like, okay, I think I have something I can work with. So now let's go to a studio. Now, this experience was totally new to me.
Right.
So it's like, okay, where should I go? So I called up some people that I knew had done stuff in the past, and they gave me some information. So I was like, okay. And I reached out to Stronger Bond Studios, who's a studio that I work with currently. So shout out to them. Um, I started with them and I went, and the atmosphere was so nice and it was so welcoming and it was so understanding and they were so nurturing as well because it was my very first time. I told them I've never stepped foot in the studio a day of my life, so I
Right.
do not know what I'm doing. I,
Mm.
I've sung in church, I've sung in front of people, but I've never did this. This part
Mm.
is new for me. So we went into the booth. I gave him what I had at the time, the engineer at the time, and he said, "Okay, so so we played around with different sounds, and he was like, listen to each sound and let me know which one sticks out to you." And I was like, okay. And as I go and as I listen, I was like, okay, that one sounds good. Oh, we can do this. And then by the
Mm.
midway of the session, we kind of had the foundation. And then it was time to go in the booth, and I'm like, everything just felt different. But what was important is that he said, okay, a lot of artists come in and they have a set idea of how things should go. And in some ways, that is a good thing. But
Mm.
you have to be a little bit open minded to the changes that might happen. And I feel a concept like that you can take anywhere and apply to anything. Because sometimes I find that we get so set in one thing that
Right.
we forget that there's different ways you can look at it. There's different sides to every situation, and if it doesn't work this way, then you can, you know, try a different angle, try a different
Right.
corner, stuff like that. So I took it and I went in there and I was singing, I'm singing, and I'm singing. And the first couple of times it felt really funky, and I was like, "Oh, this is trash. This is absolute trash." But then after a while, and when I got comfortable, then it got more I got more relaxed with it.
Right.
So, that session ended. So all that time we did, I think a verse of something, a verse and a chorus, I think. And then I had no idea because at this point this song was half written. I only had
Right.
one verse, and I had no idea what the chorus was going to be. I didn't know what the backgrounds were going to be. I had no clue. So I was like, okay, I have to seriously think about this. So I went home, all happy with what I did, and I was like, okay, so what next? What do I sing about next? Because again,
Mm.
this is my first song, so I'm like, and that's always been my issue, like because of starting this, new process, the ideas weren't coming as quick as I would
Right.
like them to. And then I am not the most patient person
Right.
either. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna set this down and for a while. It took me, embarrassingly enough, an entire year to come up with a second verse. And it's interesting how that happened because things were starting to open up, and I started writing other things. I started doing other things, writing, whether it was gospel, whatever. I started working on that. And I remember at the time, I was part of a singing group called Image, and at that time we were trying, gearing up to, work on our own solo things. And so there was a small group of us that did most of the writing. And I remember the director, Raymond, he said, to two of us, I want you to write an up-tempo song, and I'm going to give you a week. And I'm like, what?
A
I was
week.
like, it took me a week. I was like, it took me a year. It took me a year to even figure out what I was doing with my own song. And I'm supposed to come up with this now in a week. Okay. So I don't know how it happened, but some miraculous divine intervention, I was able to spit out something within a week. And it was pretty decent. So
Amazing.
unfortunately, things didn't work out with the group, but I looked at it as, preparation for me because
Right.
I was still interested in doing things. So now my goal, especially for this year, is to at least release more than one song for this year.
Right.
That was a challenge given to me. So challenge accepted. Um,
I think it's interesting, when you have a deadline,
mm,
it can force you, although creativity is quite
yeah.
a hard thing to kind of control.
Mm,
Writers get writer's blocks, singers get colds and maybe,
yeah.
lose their capacity to go into a studio within hours, complete a song. So obviously
Right.
there's no control in that, but I think having a deadline can really, really help. I think
Oh, that
some of
that
the stuff
changes
that
things.
it does change things. I think there was a lot of synergy with what you actually said at the start of how you kind of decided to become an artist. For me, it was the
Hmm.
same thing. It was actually I was working for a finance company,
Hmm.
and we all kind of did different roles within the business, and we just sat down and said, like, oh, I'd love to do some music, or I'd love to write and do
Right.
some production, and I'd love to be a photographer, and we were just talking. But then something just clicked, and we were like, but why not? Like, why are we just saying
Like,
I wish when it actually can happen?
exactly. And it's the same thing for me. Like, um, so you're gonna hear me say a different sister because I have five of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of my sisters, Leanne, she also sings. She lives in Barbados as well. We had a conversation as to why it took me so long to do anything. And I was like, to be very honest, the reason why it took this long is because one, I was really unsure. I was like, yeah, I can sing, that's fine. That, that's one thing. But it's like I don't know. When you have the ability to do something, but still you have this thing in the back of your mind like,
Mm,
eh, probably not. And growing up, always hearing, oh, not everyone makes it, and this and that and the third, which is fine because those are points that are all valid.
right.
Yes, not everyone makes it. Yes, you have to have some sort of backup plan, right?
Hmm.
But I feel like what ended up happening was I didn't try at all.
Right.
I think that's, yeah. So it's like I sat and I watched people do things, and I was like, I can do that. But
Yeah.
then in the back of my mind, I'm like, eh.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
I
like
think there's so much
mhm,
also. I think, as you know, you are an amazing singer. I did check out some
mhm,
of your videos as well of you singing. Of course, the single as well. You're a
yeah,
fantastic singer. I think there's
thank
another
you.
pressure of being an artist. I think people forget. Actually,
Mhm,
there's lots of hats to wear. There's marketing. There's
yeah,
visual elements. As much as we pretend being an artist is just about the voice, it really isn't in
yeah,
this day and age. So it's a lot of work, but you've managed to kind of overcome something that's kind of been your own barrier and your own
hmm,
self-doubt, and put
yeah.
songs out there. Just before we move on, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to your fans in the audience. We have creative underscore with Chris and creative with a K. He said New York,
Hey,
shout outs to
what
New
up?
York. He did say sing a whole new world right now. that's a request from him.
I'm serious.
I mean, if you want to, that's his
I'll
request.
sing. I'll sing what I can remember.
Okay, there we go.
I can show you the world, shining, shimmering, splendid. I don't know if those are the words. Eh, how did I forget the song?
You know what? I want to pretend that I can give you help with the lyrics, but I really cannot right now. I
I
can show
can
you both.
open you.
That's it.
Yeah, I tried.
Yeah,
You know
I'm
what's
not
funny
going to do
is
the harmony there.
my
Sorry.
my favorite Disney movie has got to be Lion King. So as much as I do acknowledge the others and the beautiful music done in all the other songs, Lion King hands down. You could ask me any song from that, I'll sing it because I know
Right.
I've watched it too many times that I
Yeah.
should.
Well, Lion King
I,
is one of my favorites too. I think,
yeah.
and Aladdin. I think it's kind of for obvious reasons. You know, the ones that feel a bit more ethnic, I want to
Uh-huh.
say.
Uh-huh.
So shout outs to Disney for changing that, you know, more recently. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, for growing up, I think Lion King was the only one I could go to. So, but
Good
thank
for
you for that
me.
small rendition. Again, there's
I
we're
tried.
getting
I
some
tried.
great comments, sounding good. And then also Dr. Dari Lams in the chat, UKBK baby. I don't know if that's how you say. And it
Oh
said,
yeah.
I think this is a
Hey.
correction for me. That it said, "Did you say sing, brother? You sang. Okay, you are a singer. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you have much love in the chat." Going back to overcoming your fears, I think
Uh-huh.
again, COVID for me was quite a great time to be a bit more introspective. You know, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
journaler, so I think the writing process was a little bit easier for me because I'm like so extra. I journal literally everything and anything, colors, things that kind of stay in my mind. I'm just constantly
Mm-hmm.
noting them down. So that part was easy, but actually, again, going into the studio was the biggest,
Mm-hmm.
most nerve-wracking thing. You forget how your voice sounds, and you're like, maybe I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a singer. Like, is this like what is this? It's a whole
Yeah,
other
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
How did you overcome that in the short space of time that you did?
Well, again, being having people in that space that was supportive and patient.
Right.
Because it's one thing to be not patient with yourself, but then when you have a feeling that you're being rushed, that doesn't help either. So
Yeah.
I am really thankful for people around me that were really patient and understood that, hey, look, I did not have any experience beyond this point. So it's like,
Okay.
but everything sounds so different because you sing on stage is different than singing in your house. It's
Yeah.
different than singing in the bathroom. It's different
Right.
singing, like each space is so different. So it's
Right.
all about adapting to each space because I remember going in and I think it was the most weirdest feeling. So you have the headphones on and you're hearing all this feedback. There's so much going on, and then there's like I don't know when to sing because like I'm hearing myself coming back at
Yeah.
me. I don't know if that's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's but like everything is just like an adjustment, and it wasn't so difficult because at the end of the day, this is something that I enjoy doing, right? So
Mm,
even like the most tough parts of it, they're still interesting because it's a whole new world. This is
I
this
love
is
the plug there.
fascinating. Ah, and it's fascinating because you're hearing different things and you're watching things being done. Like every time I go to the studio, like I ask questions. Even if I might forget one or two of them, I always, oh, what are you doing there? What does that do?
Right.
Ah, okay. So what about here? And
Yeah.
this. Okay. All right. Huh. So that's kind of I feel like what made it easy is that I took the initial advice of the first engineer and I carried that with me. You just have to have an open mind.
Mm,
And for me personally, just be patient and trust the process. That's another thing too. Trust the
Yeah.
process because you're not. No one has been perfect on their first try,
No.
unless
Yeah.
unless you were like a whiz kid or something. But those are like rare. But
Mm.
no one's ever perfect on the first go. So it's
Right.
almost like you have to say to yourself, "All right, I'm gonna mess this up a few times,
Right.
but that's fine because you'll get what you need, in the
Yeah.
long run." Yeah.
I think you learn more about, I guess, your voice as well. I think sometimes you learn about,
Hmm.
especially when you're layering. I think initially when I started, I was like,
Hmm.
I was nervous to be popped back in. Like if I'm like, can we go back to the chorus? I was really nervous to ask the producer that because I was like, I'm
Hmm.
taking up his time. I don't
Yeah.
want to kind of put them like in a space where they just keep going through the same thing. And us being
Right.
perfectionists, I think every artist has a level of that. It can
Yeah.
be annoying, but the more you do it, the more you're like, no, I'm comfortable with how I run, how I do this, how I layer,
Uh-huh.
how I go
Yeah.
through a vocal run. And you learn a bit
Mm.
more about your voice as well. When you're trying out harmonies, they're not
Yeah.
necessarily where you go to when you're doing a live performance. It's
Hmm.
you're using your lower tones, and you're using some of
Hmm.
the higher tones that you would never really even do in public sometimes. So
Right. Right.
it's it's a learning. Although I've seen your live, your one of your live performances where you're hitting some stellar high notes. They were amazing, incredible
Let me
range.
let me tell you. So about that. Um, pe- I tell people, listen. So I don't want to come across. You know what? I'm just saying. So those are one of those moments where the conditions have to be perfect. And that is something that makes me nervous as well because, you see some people get up and sing and like the preparation for, let me see, a preparation for a Britney Spears type singer is
Right?
different from a preparation for a Jennifer Hudson type singer.
Yeah,
It
a
makes
hundred,
sense, right?
100%.
And so when I when I had the opportunity to sing at um, a show last in December, um, it was one of those challenges where it's like, okay, you kind of got to you got to kind of make do with the situations and the cards that you're dealt. So there's no room for the artists to sit and stuff. So one, I'm already nervous. Two, I didn't have the greatest sound check, which is important.
Right.
And then three, you don't want to come across as being a diva or a divo or whatever when you don't want to speak. But what people don't
Yes.
understand is like when you're talking, and this is something I learned from my experience. Even if you're not speaking and you are in a crowded or noisy room, I learned that your was it your larynx? It sits higher
Yeah.
in preparation for you to talk. So imagine you are in like a state of angst or you're constantly like this because you're anticipating something. That's the same thing that's going on within.
Mhm.
And then you don't want to talk, but you got to talk over because it was a fashion show as well. So you got people getting their hair done. You get people trying on different outfits, walking back and forth. There's a lot of stimuli. Everything's happening at
Right.
once. So you're like, well, how do I? Like I was like, and then I waited a long. It was a long wait before we actually started. So I was like, I hope and I pray that when it's time for me to sing, there's still a voice left. Cause but I was really happy with how it came out, and hats off to good training
Yeah.
and good discipline, because that could have gone a totally different way.
Yeah, I learned this very lesson at my first headlining show. I was
Hmm.
super excited. I'm not a trained singer in that sense, but
Right.
I'm doing this interview with you. I'm a very talkative person. I
Hmm.
love to talk. I love to connect, especially with other artists. For me, that's just it's just a thing for me. Like I love it.
Yeah.
So I'm at the show before I need to headline right at the end, but I am talking my head off with every single artist. I'm like, oh my God, like talk to me about
Yeah.
your journey. Doing this sort of interview for
Right, right, right,
every
right.
single artist before the show. And it was
Hmm.
quite a great lineup. There was quite a few artists there.
Yeah.
By the time it came to my performance, I shit you not,
Hmm.
my voice was completely like
Shot.
destroyed, like absolutely destroyed. And I was so nervous. I mean, I managed to pull through. Luckily, the
Hmm.
crowd was great, but I knew like if they could
Yeah.
really pay attention to my voice, they would see all my voice like really
Yeah.
crackly and all over the place. So it's a great lesson to learn.
If
But it comes
here's the
back to the
thing.
same point that you made before. Like
Yeah.
for you, you are a you started in the church. You kind of got involved in music in a more natural way, I would say, because you're
Yeah.
performing in front of people, you're learning, you're absorbing. Then going into the studio is another thing. Then doing your
Hmm.
own music is another pressure. It's
Hmm.
it's so many layers,
It's
but
a lot.
it's a
It's a
very
lot.
good lesson.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and each one comes with their own level because um, singing with a group
yeah,
is totally different than singing, by yourself. So one of the reasons why I did this particular show too was because singing in church is easy. Everyone knows you.
yeah,
Everyone knows you, right? So
yeah,
that's fine. Whether you sound good or sound bad, they know you. But I was like, you know what? Let me try going into an atmosphere where no one has never seen me a day in their life. Like that's the real test. Like
right,
the guy that took the video, I didn't even know he was recording. He was like, bro. I was like, thank you. That's all he had to say. And I was like, thanks. I didn't know you were recording. I was like, I'm
yeah,
glad you liked what little bit that I did, but it's it's one of those things where I noticed that having a group of people around you, that's almost like your safety net.
yeah,
And that was a good experience in that regard. Also, shout out to my engineer, Anthony, because he has excellent foresight. And I had to tell him this when I went back to record, because when I recorded this song, when I finished recording, he said, hey, let me give you a performance track. And I was like, I'll take it. I don't
right,
know if I'll ever perform this song,
right,
but I'll take it. But I'll take it. And then
yeah,
here we are. I was like, okay, so fine. So from now on, I'll be taking a performance track with everything I do,
yeah,
which is
yeah,
which is very, and it was very accommodating too because I already had it. So when you know Fred, the guy that headlined the fashion show slash talent show, if you will, when he said, "Hey, I need pictures and a performance track," I was like, "Boom, here we go, got it." I was ready, and um, to go back to where preparation and learning is concerned as well, I called my first single my my experiment. I mean,
yeah,
for all reasons, it was an experiment, and even during that recording process, I learned so much about like writing structures and stuff like that because believe it or not, like I'm trying to sing like the way I wrote the song so weird that I couldn't even sing the first verse like the full first verse like in one take. I'm like, this is rough. I didn't, but that was something I didn't think about. I just wrote the song, and I sang what I thought I heard. But then when it comes down to recording, I'm like, well, this is different. This
mm,
doesn't make sense. Like the song itself is chopped up so many things, and that's
right,
that's another thing that I found so amazing. Like, so you're listening to your favorite song on the radio, right? And the whole thing sounds amazing, and then you record your own song and then you notice that there's certain things that you do in the studio, like for example you sing for a certain line like 5 or 6 times, right? Then you take the best take of each section, and you're pretty much stitching them together. I'm like, that is a thing. So here I am
Mm.
thinking that these singers, and most of them probably are, but most here I am thinking that these singers are like singing the whole song straight through. I mean,
Right, right.
yeah, I'm like, oh, so that's how that works. I'm like, okay, got it. So yeah, it was amazing, man.
I think
Yeah,
it's interesting that you talk about structure as well, because that was for me was a big one. You know, like when
yeah,
you're sometimes you sit back and you're like, actually, we could do a bridge here. Like it needs something else to go into. Like
yeah,
I'm happy with the song, but it needs some
yeah.
extra parts. So the recording process really does open your mind to performing in a different way. But that's
Hmm.
also on stage as well. I did a song. I have another show that's coming up, and we're kind of rehearsing one
Hmm.
of my latest singles. And I was like, I really want to change this up. We've changed the song, and I'm like, oh my god, for a song that was all fun and like vibrant, this
Yeah,
feels so emotional and deep, and we should add this and that. Like structure can really
yeah,
change in the arrangements that you make for
yeah.
a live performance. So
Of course. But that's the fun about creativity as well,
exactly.
because you could take something that meant one thing and you could kind of switch it and it has a totally different feel.
Right.
Like when I when I thought I was like, maybe I can do like a dance version of the song.
Yeah.
I was like, that was exciting to me because that was like when I got the full thing, I was like, this is like a totally different song. Like this is not the same feeling. It's just more upbeat. Like you can almost hear it at a house party kind of deal. You
Right.
know, Christmas. We might not all want to go out in a club somewhere around December or whatever, but we can, bring people over, have a little nice little intimate house party. You got music playing in the background, that
Right.
kind of thing. Everyone's dancing, having fun. So
Yeah.
it really you should never really limit your
Yeah.
creativity. Really, you just play with different things, even if it sounds bad. It's like just keep tinkering with it, and
Yeah.
eventually you come up with something that
Something
you
will work.
could be proud of, and
Yeah,
that's it.
I think that's a fair point. With your single, let's talk about the single. It's you
Yeah.
is the title.
Hmm.
So if anyone
Yes.
is watching back, I will put the links in the description. It's a great track. Like where did you find the inspiration for the song? Was there
So,
specific people in your life, or was this absorbed from things around you?
maybe a
Not
little
to
bit of
call them
both.
out, but
Maybe a little bit of both. But
okay.
one of the biggest things is that when it comes to Christmas, Christmas has always been like, uh, for the lack of sounding corny, a magical time of the year. So
I like how you say that so sarcastically. Oh, just a magical
yeah,
time of the year.
yeah,
Just the best time of every year.
just yeah. And so so at first it started, and because we had this conversation around that time, my friends and I was like, it'd be cool to write a little tune. And again, remember, I had a random voice note in my phone, and it was just me singing, I think, La La La. I was just humming or whatever song, whatever tune I had in my head. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to save it, and I'm just sit it right there. And then, so then that came back. And I was like, hmm. And it was around Christmas time when I did it anyway. So I was like,
Right.
let me just capitalize on the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it definitely had some personal ties to it because, I mean, who doesn't want, or you either want it or you already have it, where um, when people think Christmas, they think it's cold. It's one of those moments where you can cuddle up with a significant other or long for a significant other to cuddle with, whichever. So I had that in mind, and obviously you can tell by the lyrics it was my first time at the rodeo because I picked every Christmas theme I could find and I could think of and threw it in there. And my partner was actually making fun of me because of the whole chestnuts part. I was like, no one's roasting chestnuts in 2020. I was like, yes, they are.
Let's believe it. They
I mean,
might not.
I could not prove it. I could not prove it then, but around there are these little what do you call them? You know those little trucks. I don't know if you've ever, but where they sell different hot foods. It's almost like a hot truck, and like
Yeah.
around that time, especially in the city, they actually roast chestnuts. I kid you not. So I was like, there goes the validity to that line. I don't have to come up with anything else because it's happening today. So there. So I kept it. But
And you
yeah,
know
and
what? It's also a tribute to, the Chestnut Rose, Nat King Cole's version of that song
exactly.
is timeless.
So
So if they don't do it today, it's hats off to Nat King Cole, right?
there we go. So either way, I was winning, and
Right.
either way, I'm keeping it. So yeah, but that was the the motivation and the inspiration behind it. And one thing I hate is like when you think you're original, and this is me being in my head. Like you think something is original, but it's like it's a snippet of something else.
Right.
So now you have to change it and kind of work it where it's still yours, which isn't bad. Which isn't bad. Again, this
Yeah.
is just me being in my head because you want to be somewhat original in what you're doing. So
Mm.
me being an avid R&B listener, like I have 1,000 songs in my head. So when I'm writing or trying to come up with a concept, I usually start humming something, and then as I get more information, then I start to say that song's a lot like, and then I go, ah, okay, so now I got to tweak it because when I did the whole when I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for the chorus, and maybe it's you. Like there was so many songs going through my head at the time because
Mm.
then you had I think there was the Brian McKnight song. You're more than wonderful, more than amazing. And then you had, and then you had, and then you had, baby, it's you, the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you, and it's like there's all these things in my head, and I'm like, okay. So it's almost like the whole song is like a melting pot and just a R&B homage. It's like paying
Yeah,
R&B
I think
homage.
I was gonna say that. I was like when
Yeah,
I was listening to the track, it's
yeah,
definitely unique and like there's although you might feel obviously because you've been inspired by so many different things to create the
hmm
track, it
yeah.
is a very unique track, but there's something quite like nostalgic about it. There's something like you connect
Right.
with, and
And I went
it's
with it. I
yeah,
went with it
yeah.
because I was like,
And I think, of course, it's with the themes of Christmas. It's your voice as
hmm
well. I think it's very
yeah,
reminiscent. It's funny you mentioned Brian McKnight. I think I can tell there's some of the influences there. But it's nice to hear. We don't have
yeah.
music like that anymore.
Right,
So
right.
it's amazing to hear. I'm gonna again, sorry, just give a quick shout out to the people in the chat.
Oh
Kelvin
yeah,
Music
I see.
LLC, and then Chris D. Bernay 5. I think that's how you
Yes, I
pronounce it.
see. My
Carl
cousin. What up,
Smuckers.
cuz?
What up, cuz?
What up, cuz? Rafiki.
Rafigi. Yeah,
Another
my
ten
guy.
talented gentleman right there.
Amazing, amazing. How much have you grown in the industry in terms of like networking? How have you connected with other musicians
I
in
feel
the
like
industry?
I feel like this year. Uh, I don't want to be cliche and say I think this year is going to be it, but I think this year I've started a little bit more with the networking
Right.
because apart from feeling awkward just with singing and stuff like that. Networking hasn't always been um, like a thing that I was, or I think that I was good at, but
Yeah.
realizing that this is something that is definitely needed. So I've started following people, starting with folks that go to the same studio and
Mm.
talking to them, talking about their process, you know, trying to get some insight for myself on how I would go forward. Each artist is different, obviously,
Yeah.
different genres, different styles, but like it's all the same when it comes to the business side of it.
Yeah.
Rafigi, and I didn't see him come in yet, but another buddy of mine, Diop's Cord, I've actually met these two gentlemen at the show that in December, and
Oh wow.
it was kind of weird because it's like I remember walking in and it was like, uh, on one hand, I don't want to come off like I don't want to talk to nobody, but on the other hand, it's awkward because
Yeah.
everyone. The other thing too is like everyone there kind of knew each other, so I'm the only real oddball per se. Rafigi and Diop's Chord, those two artists actually started talking, with each other. I was like, you know what, let me go over and say hi. And start and we've been chatting ever since, sharing different ideas, supporting each other
That's amazing.
in different journeys. And that is something that's all it's so important. It is so
It
important
really is.
because for each artist doing their thing, not many people have that support. And
Right.
even if you are not the greatest, at least the support helps because what support does, it pushes you and it encourages you to just kind of work on your craft, work
Right.
on whatever it is, because you have a team and a network of people saying, "Hey, look, you got this. You you
Mm.
you got this." So it's important. It's really
And
important.
I think it's also nice to get like your friends and family are going to be, well, hopefully, fingers crossed, they're always going to be quite supportive.
Yeah.
Not always. I was just like thinking of my own friends and family. I was like, are you sure about that? Not always, but they, as much as they can give you a response to music, I think to get
Mm,
the kind of response from your peers in the industry, I think is an
yeah.
even bigger, almost like pat on the back, like, okay, all right, cool, I'm on the right track, or
Yeah.
actually maybe I need to restructure everything I'm doing. So it's
Mm,
amazing. I mean, we've connected here. You're in New York, I'm in London. I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing to do. And
Hmm.
also, social media has helped during, for me as well,
Hmm.
during COVID, because even the most confident people in a room, I think that has played a part in people's anxiety, social anxiety.
Yeah.
You walk into
Yeah.
a room, you're like, do I talk from far away? Do I shake
Pe-
their hands? Are we giving the
People.
elbows? People, yeah, just in general. So it is it's changing now, and on to
Yeah.
change. What can we expect from you? So It's You is out. Are we going to get any visuals for that, maybe, or are we working straight into the next
I
single?
actually thought about it.
Okay.
So when it comes to visuals, it's funny you say that because my one of my best friends, Alicia, was like, "Yeah, you need to start doing music videos now." I was like, "Yeah, I know, I know," but that's a whole other thing. But it's on the list. It's on the
Okay.
list. I actually just finished recording my next single. Actually,
Amazing.
it's called "I'm Ready." Uh, each song I think I'm gonna make fun of a little bit, but what I say about this song is like this song was a little grown, you
Oh,
know. So yeah,
okay.
and that's
Saying some
about it.
things. It's okay.
That it
Okay.
it's a little grown. When you hear it, you'll know. But
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
but this was like a fun song because this was me just just working on myself, just doing stuff. And it's interesting and it's exciting when the creative process starts to hit and you might write something that'll make you laugh. So it's
Right.
like while I was writing this, And funny enough, the direction that it originally took was it was okay. But then I switched it up. I was like, let's go this direction instead. And then so I'm writing it, and there was a certain part that just slid and it fit right in there. And I was like, this is so hilarious. And I just started laughing because of one, the way how the process is and the creative process, how that happens. And it was one of those things when it feels right, you know,
Right.
and the excitement behind it. Cause it's like, yeah, that whatever I was doing before, that wasn't it. But this right here, that's it right there. That's it. So I want to say it will be. I'm thinking about an April release, maybe like
Nice.
early April. Yeah, because
Nice.
we're almost at the end of March. So yeah, yeah, and I'm also
That's super
working on
exciting.
other things as well because again, the the uh, the goal is to put out at least two, maybe three within this year, and then
Okay.
yeah. So stay tuned.
That's exciting times. I think it's amazing to see that you've taken, you've jumped the gun and really become an artist from a singer to an artist. I think it's a big
Yeah,
step. So you should
yeah,
definitely be commended for that. It's an
it
amazing thing to
did.
do.
It's a really
And
good
it's
feeling.
yeah, I hope you feel proud of your music. It's fantastic. So again,
Yeah.
if anyone's watching, please do go check out Kyle's music. It's You is out now, and hopefully I'm Ready will be out soon. All the links will be in the description. I'm Ready.
Yeah.
Are we gonna get? I mean, I know you said it's some grown things right there, but are we getting any music videos? Are we, you're gonna go full Jodeci or?
To be determined.
Okay,
To
okay,
be
okay.
determined.
All right, all right. Well, so
There's been a
possibly
few
stay tuned.
there've been a few requests, so I'll see what I can do.
Well, if the
Yeah,
fans want it, go hit him up and just say, "Come on, we need a video."
we need it.
No, honestly, it's been so great to catch up with you and talk
Yeah,
talk to you from across the world. I'm glad that we've been able to connect. And
yeah.
any final messages to your fans that are watching this? Any words of encouragement for somebody who's deciding to venture in becoming an artist?
I'm gonna pull from a conversation I had with a coworker because I had yesterday. People are gonna come and they're gonna have opinions on what you should do, right? Some for good and some for bad. You have to discern the difference. Some people come from a place of concern because they want you to do well. And what I notice with that is, with that concern, sometimes it could be damaging because it could be discouraging. And then there are those who say things or may have opinions because they are aware of your potential and they don't want you to be great for the lack of a better term. But just believe in yourself and push forward.
That's
Believe in
amazing.
yourself and push forward.
That's an amazing message. And honestly, again, same to you. I think it's a advice that I hope you definitely follow yourself. You're an amazing
I'll
artist.
try. No,
Yeah, you're trying. You're trying. No, you're killing it right now.
no, I
So
will. I will.
again,
I will.
thank you so much for connecting.
Thank you so
And
much for
yeah,
having me.
stay in touch. And thank you everyone also joining in on the chat again. Ralph Iggy, a couple of other people have joined as well. Yeah, really love the support. Again, please do go support Carl's new single. And yeah, we'll stay tuned. Thank you so
Stay
much,
tuned
Carl.
for more. Thank you. Have a good
Thank you
one.
so much.
Bye.
Bye.